wonderfully made. That's really going to be a focus on it. So I want you to tell someone, if you're sitting on your own, you might have to yell at somebody, what you think is the best thing about you. What do you think is the best thing about you? Yeah. Alright, so you shouldn't be able to come up with something that you feel is your... Oh, Carole. So, tell us to Carole something that's really good about her.
She's got such a calm nature with very irritated small children.
So, an inner calmness. Anybody else struggling to find out anything good about them? I bet I twisted that, and so I said to you, share with somebody else what you think is your worst attributes. You can probably start at the top of the list and go on. It's much, much harder to say positive things about ourselves sometimes than it is to say negative things. So just putting that out there. So, fearfully and wonderfully made. When we look at the word fearfully, okay, we tend to think of fear, trepidation, being scared. And when we look at the word wonderfully, we think of it as being little short of perfection. Okay, those are the sorts of general meanings that we think about it. So there's a difference in approaching things fearfully and in approaching things full of confidence. There's a difference between having a good day and having a wonderful day. Yeah? There's a qualitative difference between them. Hebrew meaning is slightly different. Okay? In Hebrew, fearfully means with great reverence. It means with heartfelt interest and respect. Wonderfully means unique and set apart. So when God is saying that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, what he's really saying is you were made by God with great reverence, his heartfelt interest and respect, and uniquely and set apart. Alright? So, I want you to say after me, I'm going to say Carole, but you are going to say your own name. I don't mind if you say Carole is wonderful, but that's what it's about. Okay? So you just have to say your name quietly, because we're not allowed to speak really loud. I was made by God with great reverence, his heartfelt interest, his respect, to be unique and set apart. Okay. Now, all you have to do is believe it. Okay? I was struck last week when Dave Day talked about our hope being certain, but our hopes can change and can sometimes lead to disappointment. But what you've just said, I am made by God with great reverence, his heartfelt interest and respect, uniquely and set apart. That is an unchanging truth. That's what God said about us when he made us. Sorry, I've now got a hair attached to my lip, which is very irritating. Sorry. It shows God's regard for us all. We are valuable, and he cares about all the intricate details in our formation. As it points out in verse 13, it says, inmost being. He created our inmost being. And then in 15, when I was made in a secret place, when I was woven together, there is nothing about us that God doesn't know, because he made us like we are right at the very beginning. So this isn't a question to answer out loud, but just want you to think, how does it make you feel knowing that God knows you from the inside outwards? I personally find that a bit scary. I don't know about you. But it's also very reassuring, because there isn't anything that you can keep hidden. Somebody was talking about, I can't remember what it was, we were talking about the fact we can't keep things hidden from God. I can't remember now. So really, these verses should be a springboard for our lives. I've used this verse a lot. I had a real problem getting this ready, because it's like, I could probably speak for hours, and I've got, no, not just generally so, I mean specifically about this, I could speak for hours, okay? I've only got 10 minutes. Yeah, stop nodding, Paul. You know. And I've used it a lot when talking about self-image, because really that is something I've had to do a lot of work on myself over the years. I have not had a particularly good self-image. Growing up, I became fearful in the wrong sense, as in sort of scared, full of trepidation, etc. I was always a quiet, I know that I find this really hard to believe, I was always a very quiet child. But I didn't particularly that common. I don't have any memories of being in situations where I was socially sort of scared or anything like that. Until I transferred to secondary school. And I got through life, really, by always being the best friend of somebody who was louder and more socially adept than I am. Right? That's really how I got through life, looking back. I didn't seek them out, but just sort of how it happened. I always had a sort of really outgoing friend. But I became, or I may have always been, really, really shy. I know you find this hard to believe. I told most of you this before. I wouldn't leave the house on my own. That's how shy I was, okay? I went camping every weekend, as you know. I had friends, but I didn't really go to things growing up. I didn't go to clubs. I didn't go to anything sporting. As I got older, I didn't go to other sorts of clubs, okay, sort of discos, any of those sorts of things. Really till I was about 17, 18, and I only went because my cousin is like an out there sort of person, and she used to take me. I got took, okay, whether I wanted to go or not, sort of thing. But things started to change when I became a Christian. I became a Christian around about 18. I got up one Easter Sunday morning and went to the local parish church. Don't really know why. Okay, when I say local, it was in Wickliffe, Hampton, and I was living in South London because I was camping. Okay, and I went regularly for a while to the extent the vicar was going to start confirmation. He said he asked me to invite me to confirmation classes where I had to point out that actually I was only around at the weekend because I was camping. And he went on, and I went to a Baptist church and I did get baptised and all those sorts of things. But it really was the journey that started, that is still going on today, of Jesus making me more like him, but actually living in the good of the word that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. If verse 13 is true, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, why do we need to change? Well, I think that's because we live in a fallen world. What happens is that it doesn't say we were born perfect. It just says that God knew everything about us when we were born. In a fallen world, there's still room for the enemy to come in and create circumstances that might make it more difficult to believe that. So, I carried on being very, very shy into my 30s and 40s, and I'm still not good with strangers. I had to go to a Zoom meeting on Thursday morning, and I knew that the people who were in it all knew each other, and I didn't know any of them, only from afar, you know, seeing the conferences and things like that from afar. And I felt sick beforehand because I don't like social situations with strangers. Okay, so my stomach going, oh. But over the years, I have made myself go and do these sorts of things. And Lord was with me because as I went into the waiting room, there was another woman there on her own, and she was really chatty, so we was chatting. So by the time everybody else came and the person was leaving was 15 minutes late, I'd already been talking to somebody, so I didn't feel quite so, you know, I was with people who knew each other, etc. And so I really felt that was helpful. And I think also it's been really useful to me to understand that I'm an introvert who presents as an extrovert. When I say I am shy, most of you roll around laughing, yeah? But it is true, I am shy and I am an introvert, although I present as an extrovert. That takes a lot of energy out of me. I have to go back on somewhere on my own to recover energy. Now, Rosie and Marion are extroverts. They are the other way around. They need to be with people to get energy. This is music. We was talking with Rosie, and there was something we were suggesting. She went, "Yes, my kitchen is full of people. Love it." You know what I mean? Sort of thing. Whereas me, I like having people around, but I do have to think a lot about it, sort of thing. If it's the kitchen, it's probably Paul that has to do a lot of thinking about it, because he does most of the cooking. So, standing on the truth of that verse should bring us into balance. We're not perfect, and we may go too far in one direction, too far in another direction, or start to think I'm too thin, too fat, too tall, too short, not bright enough, too bright so people don't understand me. I'm sure you can come up with loads and loads of things. But the verse is about knowing who we are, because God created us that way, and then working with that to be more balanced about who we are. For all of us, there's bits of our personality we don't like, or there's circumstances that happen to us that we have no control over. But it's really important that we actually think about the first two words in verse 14. I praise. I choose to praise you, God, because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. You knew what you were doing. You knew the circumstances I was going to have to face. You know the things that have affected my life. But I can stand on the fact that you know everything about me and be secure in you and bring things into balance. Doing this, there's a whole stuff about abortion, which I'm not going to touch, that comes out of this. But the thing that struck me was I was intrigued about how people who were born with a disability or a life-limiting disease or got a disease or something felt about this passage. Because there's a bit of you who can say, well, God gave me this, yeah? And I can really understand it. I would imagine there's lots of people that have diseases or disabilities who rage at God, saying, why me? I'm celiac. It's a pain in the butt, but it's not something that makes me rage at God sort of thing. But I'm sure for lots of people there are things where they really rage at God, why me? And I was just intrigued to see what some of those people's take was on this verse. So I looked up lots of Christian websites and studies that they did on this, and it was no different to any other studies that were on it. It was all about actually praising God for the way they had been made. There's an extreme example. I don't know if any, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this correctly. I don't know if any of you have heard of Nicholas Vujicic. Yeah, okay. He's South African, I think. He certainly sounds South African. Evangelist, a motivational speaker, who was born limbless. He's just got a little residual foot that he calls his chicken wing that he uses. And he's got, if you don't know it, Google it. Put Nicholas Vujicic, okay, into Google, you'll come up with things. And it's truly inspirational, but he's an extreme example of somebody who is absolutely certain about who he is in God, that God created him that way for a purpose, and he's an evangelist. And he's just got an amazing story. He's married, he's got 3 kids, he's got a successful career in motivational speaking. And I think it's Rolfie the link, or sent me a link for that sort of thing. But they all talk about the truth of that verse, and I was just stunned. And lots of it was saying, we don't know why we are the way we are, we don't know why God has given us this circumstance, but we do know that we look forward to heaven. We look forward to a place where there is no disease, there is no disability, there is nothing that's wrong. And all of them are pointing in that direction. And if you want a real image of what that will be like. The whole of 1 Corinthians 15, which I'm not going to read because it's the whole chapter, talks about the resurrection. It talks about the resurrection of the dead. It talks about the resurrection of the body. And all of them were saying that that's what they were looking forward to. So I don't know why some people die young. I don't know why the Lord chooses to heal some people and not others. I don't know why some people have a lifetime of struggle and others don't. I don't know why some people can have children and some people can't. You can put whatever your big thing is. I don't know why I have this and others don't face it. What we do know is what it says in the Bible. It says, I praise you, meaning the Lord, because we are all wonderfully and fearfully made. So going back to that thing at the beginning, just in case I forget this bit. Excuse the scramble. We were made with great reverence, with heartfelt interest. That's God's heartfelt interest and God's respect. We were made wonderfully, we were made uniquely, and we were set apart. And we need to believe that in whatever the circumstances are that we are facing. We need to believe that that's what was God's best for us. Yes, the enemy can come in and can throw up circumstances we weren't expecting, can throw up illnesses that we weren't looking for. We've got an example with us because Roy starts his radiotherapy tomorrow, and it's quite intense. I think it's every other day for 10 days, and it's an hour laid on the table where they go zzz around the edges, etc. and things. And I can tell he doesn't talk about it. It's obviously looming large in his life, as it were, sort of thing. And I'm hoping that he's able to stand on this verse, that the fact that God knows everything. He knows how he's feeling, he knows what the outcome will be, he knows what's going to happen in the future. Because we are fearfully and wonderfully made. Okay, I'm just going to pray for everybody, including myself. Father, we just want to thank you for your word. We want to thank you that there are certain truths that we can stand on. Circumstances may change, our hopes may be different, but Father, we want to thank you that what your word says is true. And Father, we need to find a place where that is the most important thing, so that we can praise you, because we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you know everything there is about our lives. Every single day of it is written in your book. And Father, we just want to thank you that that's what we believe in. Amen.